Okay, I guess we can get started. You can hear okay? Okay, so Sam says she can hear you okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's get started. This is Laura E. Thompson. She's the author of the Elven Quest series and the Witches of, I'm going to screw this up,
Trad Beldam.
Tread Beldam. Like I practiced for like a few days. Like I know I'm going to mess that up.
The tough one.
But we're doing an interview today with Laura, and we're going to talk about her books and stuff. So, the first question I have, where to go? What was the driving force behind becoming an author?
Driving force was my imagination, plain and simple. I just grew up with a really active imagination, and we played pretend games. I grew up in the 90s, so there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to do in my tiny town, and we just ran around in the summertime and created fun fantasy, storylines and games and such. And then I got really into writing them down in short story format. And then in sixth grade, I had a teacher, an English teacher, that really was super supportive of me and my writing. And I shared a story with her, and she said, if you keep at your writing and develop it, I could see you becoming a published author. And so that really, stuck with me.
That's cool.
And yeah, and then in high school, I had a creative writing teacher that was kind of the same. He taught me how to take the short story and develop it more, create some backstories for the characters and create more, uh, drama in the story, more excitement, more details, all of that, and expand it into a novel style. So that's when I really got into it. But yeah, it was just having these people in my head and this imagination that wouldn't quit, and I had to write it all down.
I think there's I think all authors are a little bit on the schizophrenic side,
Yeah,
or at least with multiple personality disorder.
right.
People talking to me
I
all
do
the
think
time.
it's funny. I mean, we and it's funny. Like if you're not an author, I think you easily think, what is wrong with these authors? Because we talk to each other about our characters as if they're real people.
Yeah,
And it's funny the conversations we
that's
have.
what I think. We're all on some kind of FBI list somewhere. Like Andy Maslin was talking about how he walked into a butcher shop and was asking them questions about because it was research for his book, and they were obliging him until he asked how quickly they would be able to cut through a human bone with their saw. So they asked him to leave.
Man.
So
Yeah. Don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out.
Okay, so Chris asks, when you self-publish you do self-publishing, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay. When you self-published your first book, did you already have a following on social media, or did you just publish into the void?
So my publishing story is a little backwards for I feel like for most people, but I did query first, and I was picked up by a publisher that claimed to be half traditional, half subsidy. So they were like said that they were a hybrid. Um, they were not. They were a vanity publisher in disguise. So I was published through them first, and I did start my social media stuff after they published the book, and then within I think I was with them for a year, and then they had told me over the phone that I would only have to pay the subsidy fee once, and they would do the entire series for that one fee. Well, that was a lie. So it came time to do the second book, and I said, okay, well, I have the second book ready. Can I send it to you? And they said, sure, just pay us the next installment of, $3,000, and we'll get started. And I said, excuse me. I was told I only had to pay that once, and they laughed. The guy literally laughed at me on the phone and said, why would I say that? That's how we make our money. And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Says, all right, well then, give me my book back, give me my rights back,
so
and I'll be going this alone.
you did get your rights back and all that then, right?
I did, yeah, yeah. Luckily, I mean, I had the contract before I signed it. I had it looked at by a lawyer and all that stuff. So I went into it thinking like if something goes wrong, I want to be able to get this back.
Hmm.
And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, unfortunately, not everybody does. My sister lost hers to tape publishing. I think she finally got hers back after the fact.
Yeah.
What did you have?
It's so rough. I don't. Yeah.
Did you have a social following then, or?
Not really. I mean, I had some. So I was on Twitter, mostly just Twitter and Facebook. And I had some, but not a whole lot. And even, I mean, even after I self-published and stuff, I mean, my problem is I'm not great with spending time on all the social media sites. So I tend to just pick one that I'm comfortable with and then do everything there. So for a long time, that was Twitter until really recently. And I only had like maybe 3,000 or 4,000 followers on there. And barely any interaction. I mean, that place is like the hole where dreams go to die. So I finally just quit Twitter, and now I'm on Threads, and I really, really love Threads. It's awesome.
Yeah,
and I'm on Instagram, but I never go on it.
That's my biggest problem is that I'm on all these different social sites, but I'm the type of person that, I only speak when I have something to say, not because I have to say something.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, like on Twitter, you have to post between 15 and 20 posts per day in order to get any attention. I'm like, who the hell has time for that?
I know. And the thing is, I even tried setting, because somebody told me that, and I was like, I don't have time for that. But they suggested doing the thing where you set it up so that it posts for you, the automatic post.
Yeah.
And I did do that for a little while, but it was stupid because you're not getting any real interaction, right away. Versus on Threads where I go on there and I post something and I get 10 people saying something back, even if it's just a haha or whatever. And just that immediate interaction, it's so much better. And yeah, like Twitter was like screaming into a void, and you just like, you're like, is anybody even hearing me? I don't think so. And it got to the point where it was really just ads a lot. A lot of those writer lift things.
Oh yeah.
And like the idea behind Writer's Lift is cute. You're supposed to be retweeting or whatever everybody else's books. Like, yeah, that's super nice. But it got to the point where, I mean, there was, I think, I don't know, I couldn't even scroll through the main page without just seeing Writer's Lift, all the way down, so, and nothing else. So I was like, hey.
Yeah, then you get those people who'll follow you just to get the follow back and then unfollow you afterwards.
Yeah.
What's the point?
So many bots. Yeah.
Well, I call it the purge. Once a month, I'll go through and compare my list versus who's followed me. if they don't match up, I get rid of them.
Yeah. Well, I just don't pay attention that much, honestly. I mean, I'll try to make sure if people are trying to follow me, I do my best to weed out what I think are bots. But other than that, like,
Yeah, I've noticed that the Threads does have a way better engagement rate. Like I posted something earlier today, the last thing I posted on Threads, and it was just shot from the hip. I finished writing a scene out of my book, and I thought, God damn, that was good. So I just posted that, and like it's got, well, last I looked, it had like 12 likes, and I never got 12 likes on anything except for a smart aleck comment to Philip DeFranco, which went viral. All the stuff I didn't want to go viral does. Anywho, did you have any courses or classes that you've taken to become an author, or did you just jump into it?
Not really. I had, like I said, I had high school classes and English classes and such, but nothing specific to being an author now. I did, like, so after I became an author and I was wanting to get into editing more, I took a couple of courses on editing, but yeah, writing and authors, no.
It just comes naturally to you.
Well, I think so. Read my books and then you can tell me.
Okay, so this was kind of, I guess you kind of answered this one already. Where do your ideas come from when writing the Elven Quest or the Witches of Beldam, huh?
Hmm.
Series of
Yep.
books? Did you just come up with those,
Um, uh,
or were
let's see.
they brought in
So,
from the '90s out in the play?
yeah, pretty much. So I mean, I was always a fantasy fan. They're both fantasy series. And I loved like Tolkien. Obviously, is like the father of fantasy. I mean, everybody loves Tolkien. So I loved his style. And then when I was in grad school, I had a boss that I worked for, and she was all into Harry Potter, and she said to me, are you gonna go see the movie?" And I was like, "Yes," She said, "Well, you've read the books, right?" I said, "No," and she was like, "What? You have to read the books." And so I went home and I read the books, and I loved them, and they immediately brought me back to kind of that childhood imagination, and my love of fantasy. But I started thinking about how different her JK's version of her house elves
Mhm.
versus Tolkien's version of his elves, the tall, stately, beautiful ones. So, and I just thought, wow, same magical creature, right? Elves, but completely different looks and completely different magic and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
then I started thinking, like, if I was gonna write a story, I would want it to be about elves. I really like the idea, the concept of elves, but I like Tolkien's version kind of more.
yeah.
But then I started thinking, like, okay, well, if I was gonna write anything like that, what would it be about? And so that's when the Elven Quest characters, who, by the way, are back there on my
On your
wall,
wall, yep.
right there. Those are my books in painting form. But yeah, so that's when they kind of popped into my head and wouldn't leave. And then the witches actually came from a dream I had. The prologue was a dream I had, and it was so real that I'm a past life believer, so I really sometimes feel like maybe that was a past life experience that I was dreaming about.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of the scene that I used in the prologue, and then a conversation with my sister about a idea she had for a book about a talking, like a witch or whatever, that had a talking owl friend, like a pet friend or whatever, that was an owl. And I
Mm.
thought, oh yeah, animal. You need an animal in there. So then I created my witch's story, which has a squirrel. Her familiar is a squirrel.
Oh, I love squirrels.
So yeah, I love
I
squirrels
feed
too.
squirrels.
Run around like their tails on fire at them.
Let's see. Chris says, hi, Michael. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Sam from chat says, how do you go about editing your books?
Editing, fun stuff.
Yep.
So I have to brag. I just started a company with my bestest bud, and so we are running writers journey services now, and we do 4 different types of editing for every client. And so we do RB, who's my partner. He does line editing and copy editing, and I do the developmental and the content. But we work together on every client, and it's been awesome. First of all, just brag about that. But it's the way I got into it was through my partner Mike's RB. He went to school for line editing, or took classes for line editing and copy editing, and he and I met on a Twitter group, and then we got to talking about the whole vanity publishing situation and the fact that we both had that happen to us, where we lost money from going through one of those companies that claims, like, oh, we'll do all this stuff
Yeah.
for you, pay us a bunch of dough, and then the product is terrible. And so he had the same thing where they did, that all this editing supposedly that was going to be great, and then it was terrible. And I had that. So his thought after that happened was, I'm never going through that again, and I want to try to make sure that other authors don't go through that, and I'm going to edit and know what I'm doing and be able to edit other people's stuff. So luckily I befriended him right at the right time, because then he started taking these classes, and I was like, hey, you can practice on my books and edit them. So he did. um, but we became fast friends, and now he edits my stuff, I edit his stuff. We work on everything together, but he doesn't spoil me. He doesn't edit the whole thing. Like he'll do, majority of it. He created this awesome macro that helps, like, it's kind of like a Grammarly or like a Scrimger or whatever, but
Yeah.
better. Um, so he runs everything through that, and then he does all his changes first, and then he'll send it to me and say, okay, you got this many errors, and they are in these categories. You need to go back and look at this, and this. And then I go through and I look for things like, plot holes, and if there's repetition, tense issues, like all that stuff. So we end up doing, gosh, I think we do about 4 rounds, back and forth between us. And the rounds are not like, one time and then done. It could be like round 2-A, round 2-B, round 2-C, just depending on what we get through and what we miss. And then we send it back and then look for other things. So break it all out. And so we're looking at different things each round. But in the end, we end up catching everything that way. And it's a tedious pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But it works. It's a process that works. And I mean, for me, I'm not a fan of doing it for my own books, because you end up reading your same book over and over and over and over. And as much as I love the characters, by the fourth 4-D round, I'm like, I am so done with this book. But it works, and so
Cool.
stick
And
with
that's
it.
and those services are at what's the website? It has a hyphen in it.
Yeah, writers-journey.
writers-journey.com.
Yeah, I can send you the link too.
Let's see, and I believe the link is also in the video's description if anybody's curious. They also offer, you offer more than that though. You've a bunch of
We
services on
do.
that, right?
Yeah, we expanded. We started with just editing, and then we expanded, and now we took on our new partner, Sarah Burton, and she's doing some media work for folks, and she does writing coaching, and we do book covers, and we do fantasy maps. So yeah, a bunch of stuff. Check it out.
Cool. So if you need help with any of that, make sure you check out writers-journey.com. Neo says, hello, Laura. Hello, Michael. Hello. Hey, Sam. Hey, Chris. Laura, you gave another interview where you said that writing is an obsession. How do you juggle writing more than one book at a time and in 2 different series?
Yeah. Well, I'm a multitasker. That helps. I'm not sure really. I just honestly, I just go with what I'm feeling at the moment. So like right now, I do have 2 books that I'm in the midst of writing, and a ton that I'm editing. But one of them is book 5 for the Witches of Tradbeldum, and then the other one is a brand new like a romance novel that I'm writing with a friend of mine. First time branching out into just pure romance, so that's interesting. But it's so like right now, I don't know, I forget how many chapters I'm into in the which one. I think I'm maybe chapter 10. I was interrupted to do editing, so then I was doing a bunch of editing and only focusing on that, and then I got the idea for this romance novel and messaged my friend and said, hey, I have this idea, do you want to write it with me? He was like, yeah. So I typed up just the first chapter and figured, send it back and forth slowly or whatever, and write it slowly, like over the course of the year. We're already on page 50s. We're just like jetting it back and forth super fast. So that's the one that's actually been top of mind for me, I guess, right now. But I'll definitely go back for the Witches. They're there. I know that they're not going anywhere, and I won't let them down. I'll finish them. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it just depends on like what I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't believe in forcing it. Like I know a lot of authors that they need kind of structure and they want to sit down and say like I have a goal to write 1,000 words a day or something similar, a certain amount of pages or whatever. of this one specific thing, and I've never been able to do that because it's just, to me, it's too tedious and it's too rigid, you know. So I kind of just go with whatever I, whatever I, whatever I'm excited about, really. And
Cool.
I don't even write every day, honestly. I
So
just do what I can.
you write mostly YA fantasy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Can you give a breakdown as to what each series entails? So
Sure.
kind of like dive a little bit
Um.
into your elvens and the witches.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So Elven Quest is about let me just grab the first one here. So this is Isabel. She is main character of The Burden of Destiny and the following Elven Quests. So the first trilogy of Elven Quest is very much hero's journey style. So it's or heroine journey style. So she, young farm girl, feels different than all her friends. She has like heightened senses and just a different way of being than other kids her age. She doesn't know why. And then but she feels things before they happen. She feels danger approaching, and then she meets this old lady in the woods. Sort of your typical, meets their mage or their, you know, what is it, the wise one
Mm.
in the woods, and she kind of teaches Isabel that there are bad creatures coming their way. Her village is in danger. She tells her she has the ability to convince the elders to take them and hide in the woods. And she thinks that this lady's crazy. She says, I'm a child. They're not going to listen to me. And she kind of tells her, you have to just focus your mind and then look them in the eye, and they'll believe you. So she goes and it works, and the village is saved through what she doesn't realize that she has is magic. So then they come back home after the threat has passed, and she goes and meets up with this woman in the woods, and the lady tells her that she's a half elf. Her mother that passed away when she was little was an elf. She was a sea elf, and the father is a human. And then it sort of typical, like poor Frodo, this is your destiny to then go search for all the elves that are in hiding, bring them out of hiding, and fight against this evil that's come back to the land. And the evil's been brought back by her half sister. So her mother had a family before her, and the daughter of that marriage is evil. So then she has to try to figure out a way to stop her evil half sister. Um, so that trilogy follows that storyline, and then I have a second trilogy in that same series that's 20 years later, and so it'll start with Isabella as an adult, and she's got kids, and her best friend Mav has kids, and so it's more of like the next generation's story, Mav's kids' story.
Cool.
And those will be out. I think I'm hoping book 4 will be out this year, and then
Cool.
the
Sam
rest will
says
follow.
that is the one she just started.
Yeah. So that one, I think you could really be any age from maybe 12 up. I just read it to my 10-year-old, and he, obviously he loves it because it's mine, but he also just really loved it and said, he thought it was a really great story. And I purposely didn't read it after we finished Harry Potter because he loved Harry Potter so much. And I was like, I'm not going to follow her. So we read a book in between, but now we're reading mine, and he's liking it a lot, though. So I feel like it does, it could be enjoyed by anybody.
Yeah. Then you don't want him to get in the mindset that all elves are Dobby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
How often have you been plagued by writer's block?
That is black. I don't get it too often, honestly. I did go through a span of time where I really didn't write. And when I finished Isabel's third book, I talk about her like she's a real person. When I finished the third book in Elven Quest, um, there was a block there. There was a period of time where I thought, well, what the heck am I gonna do now? And honestly, I just like slept on it. Like I just said, okay, universe, like if I'm supposed to continue to do this, I need some inspiration. Send me something that's a sign of like what else I should write. And um, I don't know. It took a few weeks, I would say, but then I did get the ideas for their kids. So Mob's kids and then Isabel's kids, and it just snowballed. Like their kids came into my head, and then it turned into what was happening at that time. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just like I do other things at the time. I think I watched TV and I read other books and all that stuff.
Just find
But
just inspiration anywhere else. Just kind of get the
yeah,
juices
yeah,
going.
exactly. Like, yeah.
Cool.
It also can help too to switch genres. I mean, I think I did at one point. I switched. I wrote a YA. I don't know when it actually was, honestly. In between, I think, Elven Quest and Witches. But I wrote a young adult drama series under my maiden name. Um, and that's totally different genre. And it's first person versus third person. Very different.
Yeah.
And that helped, honestly. Like that
So just
broke it
switching
up or
gears
whatever.
completely.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Yeah, I went from my first book was a dark fantasy, and now I'm wrapping up a dark western. So
nice.
it's a big
That's cool.
jump from the two.
Yeah.
Chris asks, do you have a daily writing routine or is it more varied? What does a typical day or week look like?
More varied. Um, so I work a 9 to 5 job, and I've got two kids of very vast different ages. They're 8 years apart. The little one's only 2. So it's busy around here.
Mm.
And then I'm trying to do the editing company as well. So basically, the way it works for me is I have sometimes during the day, especially if I'm working from home and I've got like a dead day, I can usually do some kind of either editing or write a bit of a chapter. Um, and then in the evening and at nighttime, or nighttime and weekends are my writing time. And typically, like I said, I don't really force anything. It's more like if I have the time and I can do it, awesome, I'll sit down and do it. But I'm also very relaxed about how I write because I sit just like on the couch downstairs with my laptop and I can write with all kinds of stuff going on around me. The
Nice.
kids are in and out and little guys running around making messes and stuff, and like I can still focus enough to write stuff. So I feel like I'm lucky.
Oh yeah, you're stronger than I am.
Yeah.
I get sidetracked
Well,
fairly easy.
right. And that's the thing I do, but then I can easily jump back in to the point where I don't lose it. It doesn't fly out of my head, so I'm lucky like that, I think.
Cool. Neo asks, do you plan on continuing with the Freak or Unique series?
Yeah, yeah, I do. So I have 4 books written in that series already, and I am redoing this first one. So I'm pulling it off the shelves, and I brought it to my partner to edit, because I had published it before him and before I had any editing experience. So it's not, I mean, it's okay, but it's got some errors. And I was like, this could be better. So I'm pulling it off the shelf, and he's encouraging me to send query letters out for it, and try to do trad publishing for that series specifically. So I'm gonna try it. Haven't queried anything in years and years and years, but I figured I'll give it like maybe 6 months or something, send some query letters out, and then if it doesn't go anywhere, I'll just self-publish it again. Um, but
See,
so yeah, I have
that's
4 in that one.
that's one of the biggest things I like to point out is that I see so many authors on Twitter, especially. It's such a negative dumpster fire, but there's a lot of authors on Twitter that'll cry their hearts out for a good year and then shelve the book because they couldn't get an agent or a publisher.
I know.
I'm like, why shelve it? Just self-publish it, call it good. Get
I
your
don't
story
know.
out
And
there.
and to be honest, like, agents are still picking people up that are self-published. I mean, just because you have a book out there and you're self-published doesn't mean that you're going to turn, like, agents are going to turn you away
Oh.
necessarily. Maybe some do, but
And if
I
you're
don't know.
successful, it might even help your chances if you're
Yeah,
successful at
I
self-publishing.
think so.
Um, what is the easiest part of publishing your books aside from writing them?
Um, hmm. Um, well, I don't know. So we were talking before we started about Amazon. So we both publish through the KDP platform,
Mhm.
and I feel like Amazon is pretty easy in terms of like the structure, the style of their products, and how that they do it all. Uh, it's easy to learn, but it's tedious and kind of a pain in the butt. So I don't know. I think like for me, the easiest, best part is probably the editing and the cover art and doing all of the setup, and then going through the process of publishing through Amazon is like okay. It's tedious, but it's fine. But you get into, once you do it a bunch of times, you get into the rhythm, you know what you're doing, and it's not horrible. It's just kind of tedious.
Here's a good question from Chris from the blog. Was there any particular point into your self-publishing journey when things really began to take off, and where was that point? Or has it just been a slow and steady grind from day one till now?
Yeah, it's been pretty slow and steady, honestly. I wouldn't call it a grind. It's fun. Um, but yeah, no, it's been kind of slow and steady progress, I feel like. Um, and to me, I mean, I'm not in it for the money. Obviously, people go out and buy my books, and like that'd be awesome. But I write for me, and I love just publishing it just to get any sort of readers, and especially readers that come back and say that that they love my characters, and don't you dare do anything to this character, or I will hunt you down. And I love that. Makes it all worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, so,
One of mine is one of my favorites is that someone told me that the one of the side characters was their favorite, and that's kind of cool. The side character I wrote in
yeah,
Kingmaker was he was fun. I liked writing him. So stuff like that kind of sticks out. Any
yeah,
major
it is.
mistakes or regrets regarding the self-publishing process?
No,
Anything? Is there
no, not
anything
at
you would?
all. I mean, go ahead.
Is there anything you would do totally? You would Mic take two.
Do differently.
Anything you would totally do over if you could?
Um, no, I don't think so. I'm a big believer that things happen as they're meant to. Um, and I mean, the vanity publishing thing kind of stunk, but I learned a lot from it. So yeah, I'm out that money. I'll never get that money back. But in terms of what I learned, I feel like it's, that makes up for it, and it
Mm.
gave me the motivation to become a better writer and become a better editor, so I didn't have to go to other people to do those things. So, um, you know, and in terms of self-publishing, I'm still working at it. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I mean, the biggest struggle for me is the marketing. So I'm not great at selling myself. It's kind of like, you should read my stuff because it's awesome, but I don't know how else to convince people of that. So I'm just gonna be myself and hope that people find me and hope that people read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Neil asks, with the Elven Quest series, did you plan on writing a trilogy when you finished the first 3 books, or did it just happen?
the Elven Quest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote them all back to back. So and they were all kind of all strung together, and then I had to split them up
Was
into
it?
the 3 books.
Well, was it kind of when you wrote the first book? Did you know it was going to be a series?
No, not really. No. Um,
So it just kind of
I
formed
I
naturally.
knew. Yeah, like it just kind of formed that way. I think when I wrote it originally, I wrote books 1, 2, and 3 all together, and then it was way too long. I knew I had to split them up. I think I split them into two, but then they were still really too long for a young adult. So then I split them again into a third, and I ended up rewriting a ending for book one that didn't exist before, and then a beginning to book two that didn't exist before. So split them up again that way. But yeah, honestly, I didn't even, and I definitely didn't expect the 4, 5, and 6. Like, I didn't know that there was anything else left to write in that world. And so when that trilogy idea came to me, I was like, oh, sweet. There's still more that I can do here.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting idea. I
didn't-
like it. So,
Yeah, didn't plan it that way.
what has been the biggest hurdle you face when it comes to self-publishing?
Definitely the marketing.
Yeah, so
Marketing.
I think damn near every author will say that.
Yeah, it's rough. Because, I mean, you can get help with all the other parts, right? But the marketing part is the trickiest thing. It's there. I feel like there's a lot of people that claim do this, do that. This is works. This doesn't work. But from what I've seen, there's no secret sauce. It's just like everybody's just getting success in different ways, and that makes it rough.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's gonna work for you, you know. So I'm working with somebody right now. I just hired somebody to try to help me do some stuff like find bloggers and podcasts and things like that to talk and interview and all of that. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if it's gonna work well or not. But I figured I just try different avenues, you know, just try different things, see what works, and move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's Neil says Michael would say the same thing about himself in marketing. Yes, I do all the time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is that no one's going to buy the book if they don't know it exists. So I think marketing in general is probably the most important part of successfully selling any book, because you can have really poor editing, but unless somebody buys the book in the first place to read that poor editing, it doesn't matter.
Right. You're not even gonna know. Right.
Let's see. So you already covered that one. What's your... Oh, okay. Well, you kind of touched this one before about your editing process, like before you call a book complete. I know you go through all of your stages and steps. Do you use like beta readers, or do you guys just toss it back and forth to each other?
So I have a couple of friends that I send stuff to, and I am on some Discord groups, so I could easily pop on there and say, hey, I need some beta readers. Does anybody want to do it? I've never paid beta readers. I don't. To me, that seems a little bit silly. If I'm going to pay somebody to read it, I'd rather pay somebody to proofread it and send me back comments and, you know, or edit it and, you know, pay for that. So, not a fan of paid beta readers, but I've had like gone onto Facebook groups and stuff like that and said, hey, you know, need a beta reader, and had some people do it through that way. And it's helpful. I feel like the few times that I did it that way, though, you know, I had a couple of people that responded quickly and said, you know, gave me some good feedback, and then other people that I send it to maybe 20 people and maybe 3 people responded. The others just never did. So I don't know. It's sort of tricky. I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about.
That's something I do. Is I have a buy me a coffee monthly membership, and the monthly members get to beta read my first draft copy as kind of a fun perk.
Oh, nice. That's
And
cool. Yeah,
if it wasn't for the beta readers, Kingmaker would have been a completely different book. So
really.
I value their input quite a bit, but I don't have the long list of people you do. Let's see. Neil asks, with what you both have experience with self-publishing so far, what advice would you give your past writer self?
I would just tell her not to be afraid of doing it on my own. You know, I mean, the reason I queried in the first place was because I felt like I didn't have the like smarts to do it on my own, and now I'm like, what were you so afraid of? Not that hard, really. It's just a matter of making some good connections with people and getting help with areas where you're stuck. And then, the time and the effort to do it. So,
How old were you when you published your first book?
I don't even know. 20, go back in time. 29, I think. 29.
29? See, I was 46 and Mom was 50 something. So we late bloomers. Let's see. Chris asks, do your stories take place in made-up worlds or here in the real world? In our world, are they current day? I'm guessing the Elven Quest series is a fantasy world. What about the Witches books? Are those fantasy?
Also fantasy, yeah.
A fantasy world too?
And I'm big into like old-fashioned time periods, so most of my stuff is always going to be older time period.
So kind of
fantasy lands, not
Elizabethan,
urban fantasy.
Kind of Elizabethan era.
I like them riding the horses to go places, and all that stuff.
So do I. That's one of my. I spent 3 days researching
Go back
riding
to a
horses.
simpler time, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of my beta readers pointed out that the time frame of a certain scene of the book didn't make sense for a horse. So I spent 3 days researching it. And I'm like, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
I had to rewrite a little bit.
I like doing that too, though. Like looking up. Okay, well, would they have said this back then? Or would they have eaten this back in this time period? What, like all those things. It's always fun.
How much research do you do for your books?
Nothing really for Elven Quest, but for the Witches, I did quite a bit because it's really revolves around Celtic mythology. So, and Celtic, lore, fantasy creatures and all of that. So, magical creatures. So, I did do a lot of reading up about, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, magical creatures and stories, and all that unexplained events and things like that happening in Scotland and Ireland. So learned a lot about fae and the fairies and the marrows, as they're called, like mer people, all that kind of. So they all make appearances in those books, and I just tried to look up the different ones and then try to figure out, well, how would they fit into my world? Like where do I want to include this mystical magical creature, and then if so, how am I going to put them in?
How often do you ever change their abilities or features for your books, or do you keep it pretty strict to mythology?
I kept it fairly strict to it, but I don't know. I changed some stuff. Like there was some where I wasn't quite sure how a creature would look because they describe them different ways, and depending on which resource or site you're looking at, they have different pictures and things. So I kind of just would make up my own. But yeah, I tried to do a little bit of both, really. And then I made up some of my own creatures as well.
Let's see. What kind of writing software do you use for when you write your books? Do you use Word to hammer it out, or is there certain software that you like?
Yeah, I'm old school. I use Word.
All right.
I've tried Google Docs, but I'm not a fan of Google Docs, so I Word.
I like Google Docs to a point. With Google Docs, you're able to collaborate, and so if I have somebody helping me edit Despair, she can go in and point out where things are wrong, and then I can edit in real time, so she can actually see the changes happen. It freaked her out a couple of times because it'll just all of a sudden fix.
Yeah, we do the old school Word with track changes on it.
Well, that works. And Word lets you put in comments and all that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you can highlight and then comment on the file itself.
Mhm.
And LibreOffice
Yeah.
does something similar. But I am a big fan of Readsy. I
Oh, okay.
do like Scrivener, but
Try that one.
Scrivener has a lot of moving parts to it. It can feel intimidating because there is just so much that it can do. Really easy to get lost
Mm,
in. But cool.
yeah.
Um, is there any other apps that you guys use for publishing your books outside of Word? So like, um, what kind of graphic design software do you guys use for the covers?
Gosh.
Or do you
That's
know
an RD
that's part of
question,
your
not
business
me.
though? Yeah, I was gonna say.
It is. But so Mike, he has oh my gosh, he's gonna be mad at me. So he just purchased something, and I don't remember what it's called, honestly. And he has Canva, like the Pro Canva one, and then he has something else that he just purchased, and I can't remember what it's called. But he kind of does the combination of the two. Um, and
Yeah.
he's really he's the book cover guy. I'm just the assistant when it comes to that.
I'm a big fan of Canva.
Yeah.
Neil asks, when you publish a book, oh wait, okay, let's do Neil's first. When you publish a book, how do you celebrate if you celebrate?
Um, I I don't know. I mean, I post about it all over the place, and
Call
that's
it a
like,
day.
yeah, yeah. Call it a day. Move on to the next one. Honestly, I'm usually already on to the next one, so it's like, yeah, did this thing, yay, and then okay, now I'm on to this book. Somebody find it, hope that somebody finds it. I'll talk about it. But yeah, now it's exciting, and it's always exciting when I get the actual physical copy. That's my favorite. When I get the thing that I can hold in my hands. That's like, okay, now it's real.
Yeah, I love doing unboxings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they're printed correctly, I have to reorder my new. Yeah, long story. Anyway, Chris asks, whiskey or wine?
Yeah, definitely. If I had to choose one, I would say wine. I'm not an alcohol person either way, so probably neither.
There you go,
As my
Chris.
husband likes to say, I only like to drink them if they taste like juice.
Well,
So,
yeah, I've been accused of liking foo-foo drinks because I love sweet things. So like amaretto and
yeah, me too.
blueberry wine. Um,
I have
yeah.
a really bad sweet tooth, so yeah. Has to not taste like alcohol for me to like
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I made this one margarita. Oh, you can't even taste the alcohol, but it tastes like fruit juice. Oh, it's good, but it's
See, and then they're dangerous though, because you're
yeah,
like,
you're drinking
how
way
many
too
have
much
I
of it.
had? Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. I think that might be it. I know we're getting pretty close to an hour. Let me check, make sure there's no more. I don't think there is. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns before we let our guest go for the evening, since it's getting pretty late for her? Keep in mind, not everybody's in the middle of the country.
It's all right. I'm usually up until 11 p.m. anyway, so.
Yeah, but you were sick. I don't want to make things worse on you.
Yeah.
She would like vodka mixed drinks. I don't know, because I got like alcohol poisoning off vodka, and I have a hard time drinking it now.
Oh,
So
oh
anybody's like,
man. The only thing I don't think I could ever drink again is watermelon pucker because I got sick off of that in college, and that stuff's rough coming up.
and then the smell of it just triggers that.
Yeah. Ugh.
I feel
Yeah,
the same way.
that fake watermelon.
I feel it the same way about most vodkas. For New Year's Eve, we did a vodka chocolate. It was a whipped chocolate cream vodka, but I put that in the Dr. Pepper.
Oh man.
Couldn't even taste the vodka part, but it was the chocolate Dr. Pepper, and oh wow, I pounded so many of those down.
Wow. I need to try that. That sounds really good.
Oh, it is.
Wow.
We used Pinnacle. It's a It's not exactly a
Okay.
cheap, but it's not like Grey Goose. It's a decent vodka. But yeah, the chocolate whipped with Dr. Pepper is amazing.
Nice. That sounds
Oh,
awesome.
Chris has one here. I haven't read your books yet, but do you have a favorite character? And is there a character you wish you could be? And of course, why?
Mm.
Oh.
Um. Well, so I'm gonna start with witches. Witches is my favorite character on Witches books is Cullen. So he's the main guy in book 4. It's about his like poor broken heart.
Mhm.
I put him through the ringer so bad with stuff, but because he has so much potential and he needs to be like get through all his baggage and then become a better guy. And I'm like, and I know you can do it. Um, so that's his book 4 is about him, and he's my favorite. I like love him. If he was a real person, I'd be like, I'm running away with this guy because he's my favorite person ever. Um, and then for who I'd want to be, uh, I would no. I love in Elven Quest. I love Mauve a lot. She's Isabel's best friend, and Isabel was definitely me. I mean, her inner monologues and stuff are her feelings and everything are totally me.
Yeah.
When I was younger, you know. Uh, but I loved Mauve. I think Mauve is one of those like she will just give you the shirt off her back and do anything for you kind of best friend, and so I think I'd want to be her.
Cool. Let's see, Neo asks, would you suggest taking publishing breaks between books, months apart or years apart, or does it matter? So I know
I would say years.
some authors like Tom Bromley suggest that taking about 4 to 6 weeks after your after you finish your first draft, so when you come back to edit, that it's more fresh. But I think Neo is asking once a book hits the shelves, do you take a break or just jump
Just
right
take a
in?
break. Um, I mean, I would say it's probably a personal preference. I don't take any breaks.
I don't either.
Mostly just because I always have other characters like chomping at the bit, ready to get their stories out. Um, so for me, I don't. But I think I don't know if you were feeling burnt out, like if you got to the end and you're like, I don't even want to look at a page right now, then yeah, I would say don't force it. Definitely take a break and do something else. Really helps to read other people's stuff, honestly. Like if you're gonna take a break and read,
Mm.
um, and support other authors. I think because I have done that when I've had break times. Go through and read a bunch of other people's stuff, and it makes you like remember why you want to write and love to get back to it, kind of thing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. Well, cool. Let's see. It is 7:55. I guess we can start wrapping this up. Hey, since you're here, we are going to do. Normally, every Monday, I do an affirmation card for the week, and I would
Yeah.
be amiss if we didn't do one for this week. Chris just commented, if you're going to take a break, read other people's stuff. I like that. Okay, so Sam says, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks for having me.
it was nice actually meeting you in person. Well, kind of.
I know.
Because
Virtual.
we've been chatting on threads for a little bit. Let's see, last week's daily affirmation was, today I live in the present. Today I will start with a smile. I am in control of my attitude. Normally I post these on the YouTube channel on the community tab, but it's a tradition that started a little over a year ago, I think. And so we do once a week, we pull out a new card and we do a daily affirmation.
Nice.
Things you say to yourself every morning. And there's been actually quite a few that I stuck with that have helped tremendously.
I used to do that a lot, and I really fell out of the habit. But I should do it again.
This week's affirmation is, today I will see the possibilities. Today anything is possible. My heart is open to any and all possibilities. I'm always looking. My eyes are always open.
That's right.
But yeah, thank you very much for
Oh,
spending the evening with us, Laura. It was nice meeting you.
yeah, thanks so much.
I can't. If anybody is wants to read Laura's books, if you have Kindle Unlimited, quite a few of them are free right now, right? If I remember
They
right.
are, but they won't be for long. So I did decide to take them off Kindle Unlimited. So they're gonna be coming off right around March timeframe.
Right.
So if you are gonna do it that way,
Read it quick.
grab them now. Yeah, yeah.
I think Sam picked up your first book of the Elven Quest series on Kindle Unlimited. So, but she's a fast reader. She'll have it done before the end of the week.
And I will just remind people too. So Elven Quest is YA, but Witches is definitely adult. So it gets a little spicier. So
Oh,
little people.
all right then. We like spicy. Neil says, thank you for being on the podcast, Laura. Thanks for being on the podcast from Chris. Yeah, and I guess we can wrap this up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always hit me up on social media. I'm more active on Threads lately than I am on anything else. Well, I do get my messages from Twitter, but I rarely go to it. Chris says you're saying straight to witches. Chris likes spicy books, so
Nice.
yeah. So read
Yeah,
the
well,
Witches
hopefully
of
you'll
Trad Beldam.
adult.
Got it. Right.
And I'm on Threads too. You can find me there.
Oh, what's your handle on Threads?
Um,
Look it up real quick. I don't know.
Ellie Thompson, author.
Let's see. Okay, L.E. Thompson 06 _ author. If you're on Threads, if you go to who I follow, you'll be able to scroll down and find Laura's account there because I follow her. And you follow her there too. And you said you have an Instagram, but you never use it, right?
I do, yeah. It's the same handle, but I just hardly ever check it, honestly.
Right, I don't know.
But I'm
what
on
to
there too. You
post.
can follow me on there if you want.
Well, it's like you should post more images. I'm like, of what? I don't live that riveting of a life.
No, we're writers. We don't want to post pictures for crying out loud.
Here's what I had for breakfast.
Yeah,
Actually, I've got
Instagram this way.
I have one more question to ask you before we call it a night. Have you ever thought about using TikTok to sell your books?
Oh man.
See, she does the same thing I do. Cringe.
Like, yeah, cringe. Well, so from what I've heard is that it is a great place for authors to sell their books. Like supposedly TikTok has the best return for authors, but the idea of doing videos, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you. I don't know if I can do it.
What do I do for content? I don't know. So like, if I can figure it out and figure out what the heck to do for content for that, then maybe. But
yeah, well, that's
I'm
what
scared.
I've heard. A lot of authors have some great success, like Cassandra Thompson. She does a lot on Book Talk, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. But then I started thinking, I have kind of an awesome idea of kind of like zooming out to my book cover, but as it's slowly zooming, have voice acting from parts of the book, like action sequences and stuff, and then finally coming out to the whole book. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do it because I'm usually busy, but I'm just glad that I'm not the only one who cringes at the thought of TikTok. So.
Cringe worthy. Yeah.
Yes, Chris, she is doing the collab right now with the new book. It's the romance one, right? The romance book. You said that you were collabing. Yeah. Groovy. Well, thank you guys.
Another fantasy author.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching. You can catch, let's see, your website is, I have it in the video's description, but it's the Wix site, right? And then that leads to your writers-services.com. And yeah, I think I've got, and her author profile is also in the description down below. You can check out her books that are available on Amazon. Do you have anything on Barnes & Noble?
I think the Almond Quest ones are on Barnes and Noble actually.
So if you have a Nook,
Really check to see. I don't. Yeah, if you have enough, they're there.
cool. Oh, here's something from KDC. A good content idea is planning your character's unique features and what their role in the world you built.
Oh, okay.
Role is the world you built. All right.
We'll write that down.
Oh, here's a question. Sorry. What do you think is a
No, it's
better
okay.
chance? What do you think has a better chance of hitting a bestseller? Writing new iterations or writing sequels to exciting stories?
Oh, that's a question and a half. Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't know because I mean you get the people that don't want to say goodbye to the characters, right? So then the sequel would probably be really good, but
Yeah.
not sure.
I don't know. I normally don't aim to be a bestseller. I just want to tell a story.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us again. I think I did my outro, kind of. But if you have any questions, comments,
Right.
concerns, you can always hit me up on social media. Use the contact form on WriterSanctuary.com's website. Don't forget to check out Laura. Her links are in the video's description, especially if you're interested in writing services. They have quite a package that you can choose from, right? And so, yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, thanks for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. Thank you for being on.
Do it again.
Yep. It sounds fun. How about when you publish your next book?
Sounds good.
Yeah, right. Have a good one.
You too.